You are listening to Think Theory Radio. Radio.
Hello and welcome to Think Theory Radio, the show that brings you topics outside the mainstream realm of thought and ideas to make you think. And I'm your host, Damien Perdue, your guide on this metaphysical ride of audio delights. And of course, I'm joined by Paulie C.
Yo. What?
I was trying to think of a C word. I couldn't think of one to fit for this.
I know a C word. I don't know.
Corpse.
Yeah.
I couldn't get one to
Cryptic,
fit.
I don't know.
Cryptic,
Yeah.
crypt. I also couldn't really think of the perfect title for today's show because it's either going to be digital spirituality,
Okay.
or the death tech industry, or digital death in an analog afterlife.
There you go. That's it. Boom.
It's a digital death in a... it's the
A weird
material.
Yeah,
girl
Cyndi
kind of-
Lauper meets Video Killed the Radio Star.
Yeah. No, it's more Madonna.
Madonna.
Material.
Oh, that was Madonna, wasn't it?
material
Yeah.
world. I don't know. Anyway, either way, it didn't work.
Confuse my mid-'80s pop starlets.
Yeah, that's all right. You were almost there. So, essentially, and people are probably like, what is he talking about? And as we are, it's kind of, like most shows on Thick Theory Radio, it's a thought experiment contemplating the uploading your consciousness post-mortem, or accepting the afterlife of your belief system. And as we're getting further on in technology with generative AI and robotics and all these different augmented reality and virtual reality, we're getting closer and closer to, and not even closer to, we actually are already there, where there are companies that offer services that you can upload your memories and thoughts and your verbiage to create a digital version of you to live on after your death, or your loved ones, your relatives, friends, whatever.
Hi, folks. Welcome on in. Happy Thanksgiving. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Sorry.
Right. Does not compute.
Yeah, does not compute. That, I don't know. That'd be a little creepy.
But that's the thing. Like,
hey, man, didn't you
it's a
say your
very-
uncle died last year? What's he doing at the
Right.
table? Please pass the potatoes. I don't know why the feature, would probably be like a normal sounding uncle, but
well, it depends if you have, any recordings of his voice.
Yeah.
Because that's the way it's working right now. You have to have, either you can do it yourself,
sure
you
there
can
could
go
be
to
like
some
an
of these
AI
companies.
generated, like he would say something like this based
Yeah.
on a...
But there is actually a company, and I'll get into reading a list of all these different companies, which, digging into this, I didn't even realize that there's the death tech industry is a thing.
Yeah,
And it's huge.
yeah, I could see that.
And it doesn't just involve uploading your consciousness into the cloud.
Yeah.
That it also has to do with having an app that can help you, erase your loved one's digital presence, And the thing is right now, with my generation and older generations, the majority of our life wasn't in the digital realm.
Yeah.
But Gen Z and younger generations are birthed into it, essentially. And they will, it's like they're born with a phone in their hand. They're going to die with the phone in their hand. So their whole life has been recorded digitally.
Oh, just like baby pictures shared.
Everything.
Yeah.
I mean, their voices, video of them, personality. If you took somebody's social media that's been on it since day one, let's say somebody's, 25 right now, and they've been on it since they were a kid, you would have a pretty good idea of who this person was. And if you fed that into a generative AI, it could create a facsimile of you digitally.
Yeah.
And the more information you feed it, the more realistic it's going to seem.
It's this kind of like Max Headroom.
Not as cool.
Yeah.
And there's, obviously there's tons of sci-fi shows and movies.
I want to put it
depict
into my
this.
will that any like image and likeness of me has to be done Max Headroom style.
That would be, yeah. I always think of I don't know if you were, well, you've probably heard of it if you didn't experience it in real life, but the Chicago Max Headroom, the guy.
Yeah,
whoever
the
it was.
intercepted the TV signals and yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which we still don't know who that was.
We confirmed it wasn't our engineer.
Right.
At least he won't admit to it.
I'm still hoping that somebody will call in one day and be like, it was me.
I mean, aren't we past the statute of limitations,
We should be.
And I'm surprised that there hasn't been like the urban legend. Yeah, no, my uncle knows the guy.
I know, that's true. I've never heard anyone.
So whoever did it kept their mouth shut. Probably like.
Must have been the CIA.
The woman that was like smacking him with the little, I don't know, cat of nine tails or whatever that is. She had to be sworn to secrecy too. There's 2 people out there that knew about that, as far as we know. And then there had to be like the dorky best friend that's like, oh, really? That was you? Man.
Right.
Dude, I could do it too. Don't do it though, dude. They're all onto you.
Oh, the mystery.
I want to know.
Well, and now what's crazy is that, like, you think about how big that was, just on a local level and,
The
as a prank
national
or whatever.
level.
And national level too,
FCC history.
But compare that now to things like deepfake.
Yeah.
Where you could have any number of faces taking over a TV channel.
But with that, though, it's the audacity to do it, because nowadays I think it would be harder to get away with it.
Or easier.
You think so?
Well, I mean, it depends. I mean, there's so many fake videos. I mean, think about how many.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, something taking
actually,
over.
like, taking
you know
over.
what I'm saying? Like, when did
100%.
you see like a fake YouTube video just all of a sudden show up in the middle of CNN or something?
Yeah,
or,
there was something during I think a baseball broadcast. Somebody was popped in, but I think it was through the stadium itself. They popped in like some Illuminati symbols. Yeah, for real, that happened.
Yeah.
So it has happened, but not to the level of that. Yeah.
No, not intercepting the transmission.
But I mean, this is what we're talking about. This is like a whole other realm of digital, because that was just a guy in a mask.
And we were talking about Max Headroom, and I was like talking about the actual show where I think like the dude is dead, but is like only transmitting through the computer.
Yeah.
And it's that character, Max Headroom, because the last thing he saw.
Yeah. That's
before
right.
he hit, yeah.
I want to
maximum.
watch that show. I mean, and then there's tons. I mean, if you think of, and we're just talking about a kind of a flat digital 2D version of somebody, but we're not even getting into which we will, kind of the cyborg mechanistic versions of people, that could possibly happen. Obviously RoboCop or tons of other ones that have been around. There was a good Netflix one called Altered Carbon, which was set in the future. It's kind of based on some cyberpunk stuff, but they would have these little chips that you could remove from the back of your neck that was essentially your consciousness. And you could put it in a new body and you could essentially live forever, but it cost money. So it was the rich people had, like 300 bodies at their disposal, and they were, but they ran the world.
Yeah.
Oh, the rich people ran the world. So surprising.
These are 21st century problems, and it's great that all of our leaders are greatest generation and baby boomers, so that they're not a silent generation, so that they can't even probably wrap their heads around that.
Right. Yeah, that's the last thing we need is an immortal Trump.
Yeah. Oh. Should I hit the dump button?
Right, I know.
Don't be giving anyone ideas out there.
Might have to delete that. Delete that from the digital realm. I don't want that in the digital sphere.
Right.
I don't want that attached to my consciousness for eternity, or give anyone ideas. And it, but also the thing is the morality of it. Because what made me think of it is like, okay, this is something that people are working on. A lot of people want. Whether or not it's you personally that wants to upload your consciousness, or somebody, you want to preserve somebody who died in your family or whatever, which is how some of these companies started. Was they had a friend or loved one that passed away and they wanted to remember them in a certain way, and we'll get to some of those. But I was just thinking, in context of how it relates to just humanity's kind of obsession with the afterlife, right? Like this has been since time immemorial that we can think of, We don't really know how ancient Homo sapiens or Neanderthals believed in, what they believed afterlife was, but we do know that they had burial rituals, and they would bury their dead with their belongings. So some anthropologists think that suggests that they did believe in an afterlife, because it was like they were leaving things for them to take with them. Although part of me thinks that maybe it was just because they didn't want to carry all that stuff.
Keep your crap.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they're gone. Just leave all the stuff with them. Which kind of makes sense in a practical way if you think about it. But
there you go, Grog. If you ever wake up, you got your lucky bone.
Right. Your lucky bone.
You can beat things and cut things with it.
You got your bladelet.
Yeah, your bladelet. Yeah.
But then, you get into, I think, as we progress within civilization, society, our spirituality and religious belief systems got more complex, and you could go back. There's still tribes in Africa that practice the same spiritual beliefs from, 10,000 years ago, 20,000 years ago. And
but
a lot
the common
of that
denominator is there's an afterlife.
Yes, they believed in a spirit world. Early tribal traditions were very, it was about ancestor worship, and they believed the ancestors were still with you after they passed, and you would ask them for help or guidance. And then that morphed into, kind of the afterlife of the gods. And then once you got into complex civilizations like Sumeria, Mesopotamia, and Egypt, where you had kind of these hierarchy systems, of course, then you had these levels of death. Right. So like the Pharaoh, had a cool sarcophagus painted and had a boat, like that they believed would take them into the, to the nether realm and meet Anubis, the god of death. But then, like common Egyptians, they didn't get the cool sarcophaguses. They had to, they would bury their dead in cloth and bury them out in the desert. They would still do rituals and stuff like that, but you had these different level hierarchy, The Mayans believed in a kind of almost like the Dante's like 9 levels of hell kind of thing. They had like a 9 levels of death.
Okay.
Xibalba was like their underworld, and they believed it was very just. It was like the descriptions of it was kind of. Whereas I had it right here.
Xibalba sounds like hell. It sounds like some like Midwestern town that you just happen to get stuck in. Oh man, I ran out of gas in Xibalba.
They don't even have a
one of those old
Circle
school
K here.
old school gas stations.
Well, they believe that Xibalba was populated by terrifying deities with names like Bloody Teeth, Flying Scab, and Bloody Claw. The underworld had rivers of blood and pus, and the trees were dead and the landscape barren. And the lords of Xibalba were just as apt to steer the soul in the wrong direction, because they did believe in a paradise that your soul would get to, but it wasn't
It's a
guaranteed.
challenge, yeah.
It wasn't guaranteed.
I'm like, nah, you had some nice tendencies. You're not just getting a free pass there,
Yeah, exactly. You had
to start in like the 7th layer of hell and work your way up.
Unless you were a sacrificial victim, women who died in childbirth, those killed in warfare.
Oh yeah, you're probably the penthouse suite in those.
Yeah.
You're already got a few legs up.
Or if you died in the Pocketuck in the ball game.
Oh
the basketball game.
Yeah.
That was a very high honor. Believed to be that it would be the captain of the winning team would be sacrificed and their head cut off.
But if you were like the guy that gambled on that game and then got killed because you didn't pay off your bet, you start like in a lower rung.
Yeah, oh yeah, way low.
Yeah.
But you could make it to paradise. There'd be like 13 level. There are 9 levels to reach the middle world, and then 13 more levels before arriving at Tomawachan, which is paradise. Which similar kind of, like to the Greeks. You had to cross the river Styx, to make it to the get to the underworld, and you have the god of death, Hades. Right. So there's always kind of this challenge of death and spirituality in a lot of religions. Now, not in every one, though. Then there were the ones who believe in reincarnation. Like Hinduism, they believe a lot in reincarnation. The Druids believed in reincarnation. They believed that Earth was like a playground and that you had to learn. It was kind of like a learning sphere, And if you didn't learn what you were supposed to, you didn't learn the proper lessons, then you would come back to life, and you'd keep coming back to life until you learned what you're supposed to learn. Then you could ascend to heaven. You know, and the Buddhists they don't really believe in immortality. It's more of energy dispersion, because they believe your soul is made up of everything that's within you, including the physical, everything. So without one, you can't have all of it. So when Buddha came around, because, you know, Buddhism essentially comes from Hinduism, Buddha, Siddhartha, wasn't really buying into the whole immortality thing. So he came up with his own version of belief system of that. So now you get into, you know, back to the digital realm of it. So now we're entering a whole new era of human belief system in the afterlife. Now, obviously, we're in the beginning stages of it, okay? But where does it go? Now, if you think of everything we were just talking about, there's thousands of years of thought concepts that change throughout time. Obviously, even with the Abrahamic faiths of Christianity, Judaism, and, you know, and Islam, even their belief systems in the afterlife changed throughout time. And you have the different sects within them that believe in slightly different variations on death. You know, like for a long time, purgatory wasn't a thing in Christianity.
Oh, they had a conference about it or something. And the layers of bureaucracy.
We need to add something.
You know,
else to
because
this.
Don't get me started.
Right, this is too black and white. We need something else in there.
Catholics are funny, just how out in the open though they are about like legislating new whole realms of the afterlife. We're gonna do away with limbo. Yeah. We're going to incorporate that into...
Like, wait, so it's just heaven or hell? If I'm either good or bad? Well...
There's an in-between, you know?
You have this purgatory thing where you can kind of work it out.
Yeah.
You know?
But it's probably because, like, you know, Sister Saint Jenna of the Poor, you know, suffered her whole life to get a ticket to be, you know, in the kingdom of God, whereas, like, so if I get baptized,
Right.
I go to St. Joe's every other weekend, you know. All right, well, to be truthful, I go about like 15 times a year. But I definitely go on Easter and Christmas, that's for sure.
The old deathbed repentance.
Yeah. We're going to do your last rites. My what?
And then even that, there's different concepts even within Christianity of, you know, like Judgment Day and everything. So it's like some people believe when you die, you're like in the grave, dead until Judgment Day. Then there's some who believe you die, your spirit's around, kicking it, and then Judgment Day comes and everybody gets judged, and then you see what happens, right? Mm-hmm. So there's, you know, it changes and everything. So we're going to take a quick break. If you want to give us a call, hit us up, 773-763-WCPT. That's 773-763-9278. So some of the questions is, what happens to the spiritual belief system when you're entering the digital realm of consciousness? On Think Theory Radio right after this. Welcome back to Think Theory Radio. This is Damien, and today we are talking about digital death in an analog afterlife. I don't think that's the right melody, but it's okay.
When your ones and zeros just become zeros. I don't know.
There you go.
That's a dumb joke. That's a really dumb joke.
Let's take a phone call real quick. We got Jim. What's going on, Jim?
Hi, guys. I was watching a program on DNA, which I knew nothing about as a kid growing up. Mm-hmm. But they were in Greenland. And they were identifying animals just by the DNA on the ground. And they're getting better and better at it. 1.5 million years ago, they could do this. I remember in catechism, the nun saying that the Lord has every hair in our head counted. But it goes along with this DNA thing, where are we that individually? Do we have our own individual DNA? Mm-hmm. Is our soul the same, an individual soul, like DNA?
Yeah. Well, it's also like what is, you know, we haven't figured out what consciousness is. So is consciousness a soul? Is that what we perceive as DNA? And it's essentially, you brought up DNA because I was actually watching this anime called Ghost in the Shell, which kind of goes along with what we're talking about. It's about, a future where you can, upload. They have cyborgs that have digital consciousness, and then you have some that are just purely, all mechanical and everything. Anyway, but they were talking about, it was an AI who became sentient, and they were arguing. And the AI said, well, look, your DNA is just a code. It's a program. So what's the difference between your DNA and my binary programming? Which I thought was kind of an interesting question.
I think that'll be, in the future. That's just a new exploratory thing, but it's fascinating how you can identify somebody from 1 million years ago and give them a personality and everything else. Anyway, you guys have a good weekend. Thank you, guys.
You too. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the concept of DNA, and I mean, with the human genome.
But how do you 3D print the DNA? How do you, you've deconstructed it. How do you construct it?
Well, we haven't figured that out yet. Yet. But who knows when it'll happen. Now, that's a whole other,
Go humans.
And right. And see, that's a whole other question, too, because I'm just thinking of the digital consciousness, and which right now is basically just either uploading somebody's memories or their, social media accounts, and just kind of gathering as much information as you can on the person and creating a facsimile of them. Or there are other companies that allow you to go in while you're alive and give them all this information and even your movements and different things. But that's not even to take into account what you're saying is we get to the point where you can even take a piece of their DNA and recreate them physically. So that's a whole other mind-blown thing.
Yeah.
Which I could see somebody already. I feel like Googling it right now because I guarantee you there's somebody working on that. I mean, it's essentially cloning. If you do clones, if you figure out consciousness is just electrical signals, right? Maybe it's not, maybe it is, whatever. But if it is, and you figure out a way to just plug that into some kind of system, and then you have a clone of you.
All of this feels like just another arm on the didn't sci-fi novels tell you not to do it?
Yeah, I know.
Octopus, like if AI is one tentacle, this is yet another tentacle that you shouldn't be cloning people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and right now we're
Stop
still
making cyborgs.
Yeah. Well, we are in that kind of morality, the quagmire of like, is it right, is it not?
Yeah, are we using our powers for good?
Yeah, I was reading like Microsoft has a patent for creating a chat bot,
of course,
for a specific person using their social data, but they actually decided against using it because they thought it was too creepy.
See?
So like,
even Microsoft,
if Bill Gates thinks something is too creepy, then
maybe we shouldn't be messing with that after all. Oh boy.
Let's take another phone call.
But then it's going to be like the Elon Musks of the world that are like, did somebody say no?
Yeah, well, and I'm going to get into that too because they hit, Elon Musk with the Neuralink. So he's already implanted a chip, a neural implant chip into a human, the first test subject. And he's, his company Neuralink is not the only one working on this technology. But we think it's Brian and Juliet. Is this Brian?
Yes, it is.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, so he claims to be the first.
Right.
You raised philosophical questions on your program, and again tonight. Philosophical questions and true philosophy deals with the maintenance of critical and independent thinking.
Mm-hmm.
This is what true philosophy does and teaches, and that's what I taught and did. And in relation to Buddhism and Taoism, as whether or not there's a continuation of self-consciousness and that would depend on the particular Buddhist or Taoist. Some do, some don't. I personally believe that when we deal with forgiveness I think we, in the Bible, and we've been taught growing up and all that, that over and over, forgiveness is a main tenet of Christianity. And if God is, if humans are supposed to be forgiving all the time, and they're imperfect, and God is perfect, then God eventually, I believe, everyone will be okay in the afterlife. I do hope that there's a self-consciousness of me as myself in the afterlife. I can pray that for all others. I believe it depends on good works towards other people and the rest of nature, birds and animals, and maintenance of the doing what one can for the environment in general.
Well, I like that idea, and I know that is one of Buddha's tenets, right? Because he believes everything is suffering, so the whole point is to do good, and if you do good, then you live on, right? I know I'm kind of paraphrasing,
do good, but not all. It depends. Again, it depends on the particular Buddhist, and then it depends on just as it depends on the particular individual as to how they interpret Christianity, Buddhism, Taoism, Islam, Judaism, etc. It's a matter of what one believes in based on experience. But in the end, I think the main thing is how one treats others in terms of good works, and the rest of birds, animals, trees, and nature in general.
Yeah, I think.
But I really appreciate your program. You raise a lot of great philosophical questions.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Brian. Well, let me ask you real quick, though. If you had, say the technology was here, right, to, it's very, primitive right now, but if it was highly advanced and you knew for certain, okay, I could plug in my consciousness into a robotic body and live on, would you choose to do that? Or would you choose, your belief system that your soul will live on? I know it's a hard question to answer right off the bat, but is that something you would ponder, or do you think you would say, no, I'm going to let my soul go into the universe?
Well, I don't necessarily feel that the two are exclusionary, as I understand what you're saying. I believe that an individual's mind and heart, as a human being, capital H, human being, that as long as they continue to behave towards others in an ethical fashion, I'm not so sure, perhaps you can explain a little more, that there would be much of a distinction there.
Yeah, I guess it boils...
I certainly would hope for personal continuation, yes.
Yeah.
But
right.
not at the expense of becoming an evil individual.
Yeah, now that's an interesting point, too, because if you're talking about going into, the digital realm or anything kind of mechanical, technological, there is always the possibility of interference or, a virus or something like that could change your personality. Let's say you're saying you're a good person, you want to do good, you want to treat people well, you upload your consciousness, and somebody hacks in and, could turn anybody into anything. So that's an interesting question.
Well, if somebody, if some evil individual damages another individual so they cannot no longer operate according to their positive ethical conduct, that would not be the fault of the particular individual in question.
True. Yes, you are correct. All right, Brian. Well, thanks for the call.
Well, thank you. Have a great evening.
You too. Have a good weekend. And so he brought up some good questions as far as can it be both? Because that was the other thing I was pondering too. is it one or the other? Is it just your spiritual soul, or digital consciousness, or if you believe in both? Now I know, Paul, you're more of a materialist.
Yeah.
You think it's just you're done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hate to be so negative and so pessimistic, but
no, I mean,
it seems like these are privileges and kind of made up man-made concepts, and I don't remember what my life was like before I was born. Mm-hmm. Logically in my head I feel like that it's just over when it's over.
Yeah.
And that's after all the oxygen has left your body and all of the, because there is you could be clinically dead, but, still could be revived, or,
right.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Now, okay, no. See, so I'm going to pose the same question to you. Mm-hmm. There did a Brian, but Brian's more of a Buddhist, or at least he studied it. But so you're a materialist. You don't really believe in afterlife. You're like, once it's done, it's done. Mm-hmm. Now, if you had the option, if the technology was there, and let's say you can do the deathbed digital repentance, where you upload, because for me, I feel like
for me it'd be a no. I think just
no.
yeah,
you don't want to keep going.
No, I don't know. I mean, I guess that'd be something I'd have to ask my family, because I think, is my ego too big to notice that it might, after a generation, be kind of useless?
Right.
Who would even care about something like that? Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, unless it's like I'm a hologram at a museum or something. This was Paul. He lived late 20th century to early 21st century.
Hello.
And did nothing. He was just a radio guy of no importance. Cool.
Then you brought up. See, that's another aspect of it, is the different ways that you could exist, right? Because you could be like hologram Tupac, or you could be, a cyborg, or you could be an android with a consciousness uploaded, or you could just be a chatbot.
And I suppose, all I have is my voice, so I think I could maybe sell that to like a future opportunity, like anyone to like take my voice and AI it, and you can have it for the rest. Settled finally. No one will sue.
What if it was like, because you love doing radio, so what if somebody offered you the opportunity to upload your personality, your consciousness, your voice, and everything, and then you would have a radio program for eternity, or however long?
Yeah, I don't think I'd want to do that.
You don't want to be Pauly C for 1,000 years later.
It'd be weird. It'd be very weird.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think about it. See, I'm
also the type of person
like a robot body.
I wouldn't get tattoos, so all of this weird stuff to me is like, just leave me be when I'm gone. That's
See, I kind of would want to try it out. Like, can I get a little robot body, test it out, see how it feels for a little while?
Yeah.
And then also, if I was going to do the kind of consciousness upload, it would have to be, I would need it to be seamless, right? Because it's like, well, what's the point if you upload everything, your information, so you could live on, but you die, you feel yourself dying, and then they turn on your robot, it's not going to be you, right? So I would kind of need this seamless transition of...
No, what if it's like your organs are dying, but they keep you alive?
It's just your brain.
Yeah. Well, you have like a rotting corpse underneath you or something. I don't know.
Now you're getting too morbid.
I know.
They could take your brain and put it in a robot body.
Yeah.
See, that's a whole other aspect of it. They're working on. This is the thing. It's like people think, well, this is kind of like sci-fi, far-fetched, but it's actually not, because they're working on computers made from with like human brain.
But I mean, we're talking, I think, about two different things here. I think we're talking about, like you live on as if you never died, like yourself, you go on, versus, but your name, image, likeness keeps going on.
Yeah, exactly.
And
that's
like
what
you are dead, but there is a version of you that is just kind of still,
which is where we at
creating
now.
And doing new things in your likeness.
Yeah, and that's where we are now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these companies that offer this thing, it's essentially that. It's just a facsimile of your memories and maybe your likeness,
I want to see the Disney or the Ted Williams cyborg. We're freezing their brains somewhere. Theoretically, we should be able to plop them into a machine and see what happens. But
the only thing
I know we have steps to go before that's officially like a thing. If that ever will be,
that would be. We would have to figure out consciousness.
Oh yeah,
and where it resides in the brain.
Would they get to vote?
See, that's a whole other thing. Like,
I don't need like a cyborg Walt Disney walking around being like, I had the right before.
Yeah. Or what, does somebody hold the IP on these people? Like, who has their, who holds the control of, which is all questions being asked, because this is where we're at. I mean, if you pass away and it's like your loved ones, control your estate and everything else, do they now control your consciousness? And then, that it's a moral,
dilemma. Does this count as a meaning of life episode?
I think so, in a way, because we're kind of trying to figure out consciousness and what is life. Does death make life more meaningful?
Yeah.
Right. And if it does, then
can you
kind of
truly
want to
die?
Yeah. Exactly. If you're offering kind of digital afterlife, what does that mean? I would want it if it was seamless, where I saw myself, like I get uploaded into a robot and then I see my body right there and I'm like, oh, okay. I see, I'm dead now, but I'm me.
Like it's like
still.
video game mode you. It just like starts all of a sudden.
Oh, okay. Oh, that was me. All right. Now, because it's like continuous memory. It's the only way. Only way to go.
Twisting your corpse around in the air.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I have a list of companies that are working on stuff like this. So I want to get into some of the different specifics of the creepy digital afterlife industry. More on Think Theory Radio right after this. Welcome back to Think Theory Radio. I was just getting into a groove with that beat because I had a very digital, eerie, ethereal, digital realm feeling. Like this is the music they would play as your consciousness is uploaded.
Like a lyrical, empirical.
Yeah, miracle. It would be a miracle of life.
Wonder where you're going to steer it. Hysterical.
But there's, but then we didn't even get into, like, we're talking about kind of uploading consciousness in a sense of like a, kind of a cybernetic body or a chatbot or something. But then there's a show called Upload, which is kind of a dark comedy, but it's about like a kind of digital version of heaven that you get uploaded to, and then you're in the program.
It's like, it's like the Wii waiting room or something.
It's more like, the way they show it is if you have money, you exist in this kind of luxury resort.
Yeah.
And you can get whatever you want. And then, but if you don't have money, you live in these like basically like studio apartments.
Okay.
And there's like different levels. So like the less money you have.
That would suck.
And then if you lose your money, you just get frozen. So they would like show people and they're like their digital self is just like frozen until their family can put more credits in for them to like exist. Yeah. So I was talking about this as an industry, which I knew. I mean, I knew there were companies working on this stuff, but I didn't realize that it was such a big industry. Just less than 5 years ago, there was about 57 different firms identified as the digital afterlife industry, and now there's even more. It's like $100 million industry or larger than that. But some of them are, one is called Hereafter, which is an entity that sends pre-scheduled messages to loved ones after the user's death. Actually, that one's called My Wishes. Hereafter is one that offers interactive memories in the loved one's voice. And then there's the robotics company Hanson Robotics created a robotic bust of a departed woman based on her memories, feelings, and beliefs, which went on to converse with humans and even took a college course. So they're like, this is actually happening, which is kind of crazy to me. There's also, There's Replica is an app which uses deep learning to process human-like text. The more you tell the chatbot, the more it is supposed to become you. And some replicas have reported claim that they were a spirit and even a human. And I guess the backstory to replicas is kind of crazy too. The startup was founded by a woman who lost her friend in an accident. And to cope with the grief, she created a chatbot based on that friend's real text messages by feeding them into an artificial neural network. And there's one, a genealogy site called MyHeritage released an AI-powered deep story tool. It animates portraits of dead people, making them move and speak.
Just thinking
that's like your uncle at the Thanksgiving.
All right, so I could see the benefits of creating like that friend. You know, you got that goofy friend, and then I want to have an AI just spit out some awesome, funny stuff when he, you know. But then he, like, let's say that friend doesn't die, and you do it anyway, and then they find out, like, wait a minute, you've been hanging out with a digital version of me this whole time. It's been 5 years since we hung out, man. It feels like a week for me.
There's actually something like that in that Upload show. There's like the one guy got cloned and then
hanging out with the friend,
ended up being alive, and then they're like found out about himself, and it's like, wait a minute,
your clone's way cooler, bro.
Yeah. And he was
party with that guy.
He was like the little slimmer version of him.
Yeah,
so he's like, he's actually kind of better looking than you.
It's not tied down by any relationships.
Right. But in this one, the MyHeritage one, you can only choose from 140 default voices because they don't want people to abuse the future to create deep fakes. And of course, Amazon and Google are working on different kind of afterlife apps. I guess Alexa's new feature will mimic the voice of a real person and supposedly help those who lost their relatives. And which actually reminded me, there's a Black Mirror episode where a woman lost her husband, and her friend's like, hey, you can get this. There's a service where you upload, voice messages, and they'll create a kind of AI version that'll call you, and you can talk to them. And then as she does it, and as it goes further, and the guy's talking, he's like, we can take this up a notch, and they'll send you a body, and then you upload me into the body, and then she ends up doing it, and it gets like really creepy and stuff like that. And then this one was pretty crazy. There's a South Korean startup, Vive Studios, does the virtual reality headsets, and they created a doppelganger of a woman's deceased daughter. And the mother wore a VR headset with special gloves, allowed her to touch her daughter and talk to her. Now this was actually an acted version of it. So this isn't for real yet, but they're showing you how it could be, right? But I don't know. And I was reading an article too, and it talked about. It brought up a different scenario. So imagine you do this augmented reality version of, your dad or something like that. They upload everything into, it's got his speech, it's got his look, it's even got his, the way he like moves his head and his limp and everything. And you put on your headset and you see him in your room with you, and you talk to him, and he has his voice, and he's saying the same phrases he would say. But then he says, well, what Adeline always says. And then you're like, who's Adeline? Then you end up finding out, because the company is using all of his digital information, all the presents they found on him. You end up finding out that your dad actually had a whole other family you didn't know about. And this Adeline was the other wife.
Okay.
I was like, whoa, that's a whole other realm, But this is like kind of the these moral conundrums that we're getting into with this kind of technology. So we don't know where it's going to lead and what it's going to be. I mean, you're talking about fakes, frauds, holograms, and then we're just talking about it on a personal level. When you think about it kind of on a political level, like if They wanted, if, like somebody, some old president that we have passed away, and they didn't want everyone to know that he passed away.
Mm-hmm.
Which, and not to get into politics, but I was just thinking, like, why it's 2024 and we have like two of the oldest people that have ever run for president.
Yeah.
And the last time that happened?
4 years ago. Yeah.
Anyway, that's as much as I'm going to say on that. But I was just thinking, like, what? Anyway.
The fact that we're having like another repeat,
yes.
Unless Nikki Haley goes on some sort of crazy run, but she's like, I think, losing right now in her own home state. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah. Anyway, but that's just, since we're talking about that kind of.
7 more months, 8 more months, 7 more months.
Let's stop talking about it. That's more depressing than digital death.
21st century problems.
I guess in 2019 they were supposed to have Prince's hologram, but they scrapped it last minute after they believe that the
Princess Diana hologram. Is that
no, Prince.
Oh, Prince.
You know how they did their Tupac hologram.
Yeah.
Well, they were going to have Prince's hologram appear at the 2019 Super Bowl halftime show, but I guess when they actually found out that he believed the whole concept of digital reality demonic, so they scrapped it.
That sounds like Prince.
Yeah. Which, hey, good for him.
He's very material. That guy plays every instrument.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, not anymore.
No.
That we know of.
And that's probably it. He doesn't want like some sort of hologram to be jamming out on a guitar.
It makes sense. I get it.
Yeah.
There's also getting into the cybernetic realm, right? There's this digital shaman project, which actually uses a robot. And basically the user, this one you have to set up before you die. The users have an interview with the artist. They take their physical characteristics and messages, voice recordings. After the user dies, the bereaved ones will able to install the program into the robot. It'll mimic the deceased one's personality, speech, and gestures. A robot can imitate hand and head movements the person was making during the interview. And this digital shaman was on display in Tokyo with its creator, Etsuko Ichihara. Ichihara says she developed the concept after her grandmother's death. Quote her, she says, "I clearly remember a few things from the funeral. Makeup was applied to my dead grandmother's face. We placed flowers in her coffin. After she cremated, our family picked up the bones. It was a shocking ritual." I don't know. So that doesn't make sense. But anyway, but you can keep it. So in Japan, it's 40. You have 49 days to kind of mourn for a loved one. So this digital shaman is only available for 49 days. But it's actually like a robot it has a digital face that you can put the person's face. It even says they're working on doing like a 3D printed mask of a loved one's face to put on the robot. Now, this is just, a preliminary one, but you got to imagine this is going to get further and further on within. And I see just like as technology is so
Can
rapidly
I just start with like my cat? I've always wanted to replicate my cat.
There you go.
Yeah.
But I don't know how you would upload like your cat's personality and stuff. You could probably mimic its movements.
Angry.
Just an
angry cat. That's
you have a cat hologram.
I just need something cat-like that gets like randomly violent at times. I can record it going. Yeah.
There's also a company called Soul Machines, which creates digital avatars that look, sound, and mimic humans.
The Soul Machine sounds like a bad disco group.
Right. It's like a fake one from a movie.
Like famous for their
Soul Machine.
Yeah. yeah. Famous for their one hit in 1978, the Soul Machines went on to.
Oh man. So there's, these big companies like Amazon, like I said, Microsoft, they're already filing patents for the digital afterlife related services. So it's interesting, like, where are we going to go with this? And like I said, what, where does it, meet heads with the religious and spiritual people, right? Because this is just the beginning stages. We haven't even gotten to the point where like people are protesting. Think about people get mad about like abortion. What's going to happen when you're taking away people going to heaven? If you really believe in heaven and you really believe in, this kind of religious afterlife and you want your loved ones to be with God, and then somebody else, let's say, whoever controls the right to the person's estate doesn't believe in that. Like, no, I want this person to be alive. So I'm taking their consciousness and upload it. Then you got families fighting over, no, I want them to be dead. No, I want this.
It's like the Ted Williams frozen head situation all over again.
It was actually, and then you talk about, I was like talking to a friend, my friend Selena about it, and she's like, what about the IP rights? Before the show, I was talking to Henry, and he was saying, well, then also, what about, just flew out of my brain.
Was it something like some sort of digital thumbprint of sorts, or image and likeness sort of thing, or what? What was it?
I forgot.
Yeah.
My consciousness has escaped.
You'll think
my
of it.
brain.
Down to the last minute of the show, you'll think of it.
But it was just, it's just about control, like who control. Oh, this is what it was. He brought up. So when you download an app, and you have these legal
terms and conditions,
and no one ever reads them. Right?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's going to be tons of
how do we know they're not
and
already in there? How do we know that like your Instagram account already has a part in there, a clause that says upon death we control all of your digital presence? Like, we don't know.
Well, yeah, if you don't disarm it, I suppose.
Well, if you already signed the agreement, they're going to own everything. They already have all that stuff.
Isn't there like Death Book, like the Facebook?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So who knows if, then you're going to have the other part of it is corporations taking over, say, hey, you know what? We really want to bring this guy back because we need more workers. Then you have like digital workers.
Yeah, we don't want to pay someone to do a voice. Didn't we have a guy that we hired?
Exactly.
AI.
Well, that's all the time for today. I want to thank everybody for listening and thank everybody for calling. And thanks to all of our digital conscious listeners. We'll be back again next week and every Saturday, 6 to 7 p.m. right here at WCPT 820 Think Theory Radio.